Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Jen, also known as Boston Jen on Ravelry and Boston Jen 1 on Instagram. And this is my Downseller Studio YouTube channel. I'm so glad that you found us here today, whether you're a returning viewer or whether you're new here. Today we are going to talk about my finished objects in the month of August 2021 and where I landed with Stash Dash, which wrapped up on August 31st. If you are new around here, Stash Dash is a knit along hosted by the Knit Girls video podcast, which I will link down below along with everything else that I'll tell you about today. And I really enjoy this knit along. It really gets me motivated to work through Stash, to finish up some projects, get some old whips off the needles, and to start the fall fresh. And I have a little competition with my friend Jasmine of the Knit More Girls. So you will also hear at the end of this episode, this little video, whether or not I've beaten her again this year. What do you think? Let me know down below. Okay, let's start off with the first object that I finished in the month of August, which is this shawl that I'm wearing right here. This is a pattern of my design. It's called the Millie Margaret Shawl. I originally designed it for fingering weight yarn, and then I purchased some Knit Picks Felici worsted weight yarn and some Knit Picks twill, and I decided to go ahead and do it up in worsted weight as well. So it's a sideways knit crescent kind of shawl. You work from one end to the other, so you use self-striping on either end. It uses about 100 grams of the worsted weight self-striping on either side and less than 100 grams in the center. And it's just a really fun pattern. I love these sideways knit shawls because the rows never get too long, which is great if you are a process knitter, but it's also just really easy and wearable to wear. I like the fingering weight size, but this worsted weight size is pretty great if you tend to like bigger shawls and want a little bit more warmth. The fingering weight one is a little bit more decorative. So this is my first finished object in the month of August. Let's check how many meters that was. All right, we've got 489.8 meters for this finished object. All right, on to project number 2, my Summer Vibes socks. This is yarn that came in my Yarnable subscription box in the month of July that I loved so much I just had to go ahead and cast them on. I have 2 of them, but I'm short on sock blockers today. I used the OMG heel pattern by Megan Williams, which is one of my go-tos, 56 stitches, US 1.5 needles, which is a 2.5 millimeter, and I think these are fantastic. For Stash Dash, this was 272 meters. The next thing I'll tell you about is actually something that I've already gifted, so I don't have it here today, but I will put some pictures up on the screen. It is a pattern called Chubby Elephant. It's a crochet pattern where you use Bernat velvet yarn, and you make basically 2 flat elephants and put ears on them and embroider some eyes, and then you crochet them together with some stuffing in the middle, and it makes kind of like a pillow or a stuffy. And I made this for my cousin Joe's daughter, Victoria, who turned 1, and I thought this would be a nice little gift for her. And this got me 168.5 meters for Stash Dash. Next up, we have another pair of socks. This pair is using Legacy Fiber Arts in the Imaginarium colorway. I really like the sort of pops of the marigoldy kind of color that's in there. It really gives it a luminescence that I'm not sure if it's going to translate on screen or not, but you can definitely see it in person. This was Legacy Fiber Arts New Year's colorway, and I really think that vibe of the twinkle lights really shows through for me. For the cuffs, I just used a mini skein that I had on hand that I think was from A Girl in Her Wool. These are 2 sponsors that are coming back for my pigskin party, which is our fall knit along that kicks off on September 9th. If you'd like to join us, find details down below for that. But yeah, so if you've got some of their yarn, definitely knit it up for the pigskin party. It's a lot of fun. And then Sarah Jordan, who is often a sponsor of my knitting events over the Downseller Studio audio podcast, designed this heel, which is the Non-Euclidian heel. And I think it's a really cool effect. I really like the way that it fits. It is knit top down. And that's what that looks like. So I thought I would just share that. I like this pattern a lot. The only reason I don't do it more often is that I haven't memorized it yet. So I'm working on that, but it's a really great It's a really great heel. So those are my Imaginarium socks, and those were 253.8 meters for Stash Dash. The next project I have, I can't really share with you. It is a design project that I'm not ready to share publicly, but just for proof that it is done, this is my shawl. It is knit up using all scraps, and I don't mean like 10-gram minis, I mean like 2 to 5 grams at most of different colors for most of the parts of the shawl. And I will give you a little sneak peek that I did use the bind off that I feel like has been sweeping the nation or the nations, the 2-colored I-cord bind off that Stephen West has popularized. So there's a little peek for you. I had so much fun with this project and I can't wait to share it with you, but I need to finish writing the pattern and then I can get it ready for testers. So more to come on that one. But this was a whopping 752 meters for Stash Dash. So gotta love that. All right, speaking of lots of meters, this blanket I'm so excited for. Also, it's a ton of meters. This is a solid Granny square scrappy blanket that I absolutely adore. So I used fingering weight yarn. I forget what size hook, maybe a D hook. And I made 3 rounds, 3 rounds of each color. And then I used 2 skeins that were fairly similar to put borders on all of the colored squares. Just back up a little bit. So that's my blanket. And then I did a couple rounds, it looks like 3 rounds of single crochet in the gray. And then I added that little lacy bit. So I think that was a double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet 1, chain 1, skip 1 all the way around. And it just gives it that nice little effect there. So yeah, I love the way that this came out. Originally this was going to be a gift, but I love it so much I need to keep it. I think it might go on the back of my chair down cellar here because I enjoy it quite a bit. And in terms of meters, this was, let's see, 1,816 meters of sock yarn out of my stash and into a really nice cozy blanket. There's a lot of blankets this month. Okay, but before that, we also have some more socks. This is a pair of Shorty socks using Regia Candy Color. I did these with a US 1 instead of a 1.5, so it was a 2.25 millimeter needle. I did 60 stitches for the cuff for this 2x2 for these shorties, and then I did the OMG heel, and once I got past the heel, I went down to 56 stitches, and these fit really nicely. I love self-patterning yarn. I didn't try to match them in any way, and I think that worked out perfectly fine. So these were fun. I had cast the first one on and almost finished the first one last December, and then just put them away, but I'll be excited to have these in my drawer for the Christmas season 2021. These use 50 grams exactly, and that was 210 meters for Stash Dash. Next up, we have something different. My finished spinning. This was, I think it was 4 ounces, about 100 grams of merino in this beautiful colorway called Wild Plum from Fiber Addict Designs, I think it is, on Etsy. And I did a 3-ply, which came out to about a DK weight. Let me see if I wrote down on the tag. I did not. I think it was 252 meters for the finished yardage, but because it's a 3-ply for Stash Dash, you multiply that times 4 because the fiber went through the orifice 4 times, so it's a lot more meters than that. It was 924.2 meters for this beautiful skein of yarn. All right, now we're back to blankets for even more meters. This was towards the end of August. I got a wild hair to really dash some stash. So I had a whole cubby in my little IKEA Calyx system, my 12 by 12 square cubby of Lion's brand Nature's Choice organic cotton yarn that I really like. It's a really soft and squishy yarn. I've made 2 blankets out of it already, but I still had a whole cubby's worth and it was time for it to vacate. So I went ahead and used the Granny stripe blanket from Lucy of Attic 24, which I know many of you have already crocheted up. It's very popular for scrappy fingering weight projects, but it worked just as well for this. Let me make sure I'm showing you the right side. So I ended up doing a repeat where I did three stripes rather of the cream, and then a contrast color, then 3 stripes of the off-white, and then back through. And the repeat here, you can see from this end, it starts with the green, and I did 3 repeats of this color sequence. It is quite large. Around the edges, I did 1 round of the granny stripe. Ooh, this thing sheds, I need to wash it. So you can see here, I did the granny stripe around the edge, and then I did a round of half double crochet in the same color. Then I did a round of single crochet in the blue, and then I did the picot or mock picot kind of bind off that Lucy mentions in the blog. So all of that you can find. It's a free pattern. It's available off of Ravelry if you're not on Ravelry. And it's just a really great pattern. I used a really big hook for this. I forget which size, maybe a J, maybe an I don't quite remember, but I really like this. I think this will be great for a baby boy. No intended recipients in mind right now, but it'll be great to have this in the gift bin ready to go. And this was 710.2 meters for Stash Dash. So that was wonderful. However, I still had more than half of the yarn left after I finished that blanket. And I said, well, this isn't gonna do. I'm gonna have to make another blanket. And I debated making the same pattern because I really wanted something simple and easy that I didn't have to look at line by line instructions. I knew we'd be going up to my cousin's lake house, and I wanted to just have something that I could breeze right through, work on in the car if I wanted to. And so, but I did end up wanting to switch it up. So I found a pattern online called Baby Blanket. It's a free pattern available on Lovecrafts. It's basically a V-stitch blanket. So I will link to it, of course, in the down bar below. But for this one, you're basically, once you do the setup, you're doing the same stitch all the way across every single row. So I decided to do color blocking. So I did the off-white and then that more taupey color, and then I did a stripy section in the middle and then back through. Let me hold it this way, it might be a little better. So that's my stripy color block V-stitch blanket. It was a lot of fun to work up. It kind of has a little bit of a retro vibe to it, but also, you know, a little bit classic, I think. So I was glad to use that up. I still ended up with 1 skein of that dark brown yarn left, but I didn't love the idea of edging it with the brown. I edged it with that creamy color, and I like the way that looks. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice the look of this just to use up extra stash. So didn't use all of it, but I donated that 1 skein. It's already out of the house, so that feels fantastic. As does the amount of meters that I got for this one, which was 643.9. So did pretty well banishing all of this cotton and putting it into something useful and snuggly instead of just sitting in my cabinet for another 10 years. All right. Another project that I don't have to show here today is a pair of socks using the OMG heel with the Patons Kroy Magic Stripes colorway. I love this colorway. And I was working both of the socks Magic Loop in parallel on separate needles. And as I got to almost the toe of the first one, I realized I would be finishing it when we were up visiting my cousin Gail. And it hit me like these were Gail's perfect colors. So the first night we were there, I said to her, would you like a pair of hand knit socks? And she said, would I? And so we tried them on, and as I suspected, we were right about where the toe should be. So I put the toe on that first one, and then over the course of the next 2 days, I finished the second sock and I left them with her, and she is really happy with them and really thrilled. So that was a lot of fun. So hopefully you can get the feel of those from the pictures that I'm sharing here, and I'm glad to have those finished. That was, let's see, 267 meters for Stash Dash. All right, now I have 2 last projects to share with you. We were getting towards the end of the month, and I was working on a pair of socks, but I also knew that if I had any chance of, meeting Jasmine or beating her at Stash Dash, I had to pull out some major meters. So I was working furiously on these socks, which I will show you in a second, but I also decided that I would go ahead and cast on another crochet blanket using fingering weight yarn held double for a very small blanket, which was what my grandmother asked me for on a recent visit with her. She said for Christmas she wants a very small blanket that would cover basically just from her knees to her feet for in the mornings when she's sitting in her recliner with her bathrobe on and doesn't yet have on her compression stockings that she wears for the day. And so I found a whole bunch of skeins of yarn in my stash that would match her living room, and I banged out this project. It is all different colors of fingering weight yarn held together. The pattern is called shell stitch, but it's really sort of like a corner to corner blanket that's not done corner to corner. It is done side to side. And I think it came out really beautiful. It's super squishy. And yeah, I think it's just going to be really great. And as I suspected, this got me a ton of meters for such a small thing. This got me 1,184.4 meters, and I did this in 2 days. The other blankets took me 2 to 3 days maybe, but this felt really impressive for something so small. But that fingering weight held double just really goes a long, long way. So that is my last blanket for Stash Dash. And then last but not least, I ended up only finishing one, not two, but that's okay because that counts for Stash Dash. One of these WhatitsGalore Felici self-striping socks with a contrast heel and just a nice navy. These will be gifted. The second one, I finished the heel, but I didn't finish it in time for Stash Dash. So this one just got me 119.4 meters for Stash Dash. So I guess you're wondering, where does that leave me in terms of my Stash Dash total for this year? Without further ado, drum roll please. I ended up with 16,696.4 meters, which is pretty good. I'm not unhappy with that total. I did get 28,000 meters last year, but I was a little bit of an overachiever with my new spinning wheel and I spun a lot. Whereas this year I was able to work on designs, write some designs, work on new patterns, working with test knitters and stuff like that, which definitely took away from some of my productive knitting and crochet and spinning time. So I'm really happy with where I landed this year. That said, as of now, my friend Jasmine has 18,811.2 meters for Stash Dash. So after several years of trouncing on her, she's finally come back and beat me. And I am very excited to be taking the beautiful sash and letting it get some, West Coast smog on it before she has to give it back to me next year. I can live without it for one very short year. And then in 2022, we see where the chips land, right? So that is all for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed seeing what I made in the month of August. If you want to see any of the links to my Ravelry project pages, they will all be down below. If Ravelry is not accessible to you, just shoot me a message in the comments or find me on social and I will be happy to share any of those details with you. That's absolutely not a problem. If you liked any of the projects or you want to comment on any of them or want to know anything about them, feel free to comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on this channel, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already so that you don't miss anything that I put out in the future. Thank you so much for watching and I will catch up with you again real soon. Bye-bye.